for this morning is what reassurances we can gain in circumstances where we feel overcome, burdened, or depressed, or in a sense just overwhelmed by circumstances that press upon us. Now you may remember about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, I preached on that saying that Jesus said to his disciples just before he left that final supper and walked out to face his accusers. He said, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in me, believe also in God. Let not your hearts be troubled." Now, it's not an easy thing to know what that means. How do you manoeuvre yourself into a situation? How do you find yourself in that situation where no matter what your circumstances, your hearts need not be troubled? Now, Jesus was talking to his disciples, as you know, in very difficult circumstances. There were people outside the room. If they'd known where they were hiding in that room, let me say. It was a secret gathering, and the disciples were terrified because they'd seen that there were all manner of people. Every time Jesus walked out, the only thing that kept him alive was the fact that crowds gathered round him. Several times they'd sent assassins to get him, and they went back saying, "There's too many people around, we can't do it." So they were terrified. They thought they'll be next. They believed Jesus was the Messiah, but he was talking about being tortured and killed and so on. So they were in a state of extraordinary confusion. And he says, "Let not your hearts be troubled." And then off he went. So, I'm not going to repeat that sermon because I know you remember it almost word for word. And recite sections of it to yourself as you go to sleep at night and so on. I want to talk about the nature of faith itself, and another phrase that has burned its way into my mind. Because not only did he say things like, "Let not your hearts be troubled," but listen, this is out of Hebrews, and this has gone round and round and round in my head recently. Therefore, the writer of Hebrews, this is probably Paul. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame." The joy. What this writer is saying here is that when Jesus said to his disciples, don't let your hearts be troubled, don't be troubled. And he walks out. And he knows what he's facing. In fact, he's in a state of extraordinary turmoil, sweating to the point that one of the writers said it was like great lumps of blood was coming off him. He's in utter turmoil. And he is calling out at one stage, he calls out to God, "Look, I don't want to do this." And then he resigns himself. So you can see his extraordinary struggle. He goes back to his disciples looking for some companionships, and he finds them asleep. He wakes them up, he comes back, they're asleep again, and so on. So he's coming and going restlessly, trying to deal with the horrors that are about to face him. And those horrors, he knows, is pain, insult, humiliation, and finally, he finds himself where he is separated from God. He calls out, "Why have you abandoned me?" He knows that is about to happen. And this writer says that Jesus steps into that situation because of the joy that was in him. I want to know what that joy is. What is this joy that you can have in circumstances where you're faced with such horrible consequences, and you know it's coming? What is this fundamental joy? So maybe that is part of what underlies that statement of Jesus, let not your hearts be troubled. So, in order to find my way into what those meant, I thought, well, maybe I should go back a bit and discover what the word faith means. Is it about faith? You know, faith is this thing that we have, which is that sort of connector between us and God. Faith in many ways is the measure of us, the way we manifest faith. So, this quote from Hebrews, which I read about joy, that's in chapter 12. And it's a response to the argument that, of course, has just emerged out of the chapter before, chapter 11, in which the writer does define faith. So, it's a very famous definition, a very elusive but intriguing definition. And he says this: faith is confidence in what we hope and an assurance about what we do not see. Do you understand that faith is confidence in what we hope and assurance about what we do not see? I see that as sort of, it's like faith has a beginning and an end to it. The beginning, I think, where it says faith is confidence, I reckon that it is the beginning of faith, in a sense, is the knowledge of God. We must know who God is. If we know who God is, then we can develop confidence to take us through to that assurance about what we don't see. And what we don't see, in a way, are the promises of God. We hear them, we ponder them, and we take some comfort from them, the promises that God is going to return, that God will administer justice in this world one day, that God will do this, God will do that, and so on. So maybe faith as the confidence in what we hope is us knowing who God is. And that simple little hymn that we sang at first, God is the creator of the world, it begins. Of course, that's simple. But if we ponder that, then suddenly everything changes. The one that we believe in now, the one who we are trying to understand, is someone we can have confidence in. And the more we know God, the more we'll realise that confidence has substance. And then, if it's confidence in what we hope, and then assurance about what we do not see, I see that the assurance is our assurance about the promises that He has made. I will be with you always. So, there, I think, are the sort of building blocks of that situation which allows Jesus to say to His disciples, don't let your hearts be troubled. It's not a vacant sort of, oh, have a good day. I hope things are good for you. This is more than that. These are promises caught up in that statement. This faith is based on God. It's not based on another person. It's not based on beliefs about the progress of human politics. It's based on God. Everything else changes. There is no other entity in the cosmos or in our life that is like God. God does not change. So, an example of this, perhaps, you see the beginning of an example in that incident when Thomas, the disciple, joined the disciples in this same upper room, where they are saying to him, he walks into the room and they say, "We have seen Jesus," after they'd seen him killed and taken off the cross and buried. And they say to Thomas, "We've seen him." He said, "No, you haven't. He's dead." They said, "No, we have seen him." And Thomas says, like a lot of people, I think like me, I'd say, "Well, you say you've seen him. I haven't seen him." And he said, "Unless I touch him. If I can touch him, then I'll believe." And lo and behold, there is Jesus standing before him and says, "Okay, touch me." And he can't do it. And he falls down. And he says, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus says a very interesting thing to him. He says, "Blessed are you, because you've seen it. But listen to this. But more blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed." So that's what I believe Paul is talking about in this statement about faith. So in a sense, though we are the people, we are the Thomases, we are the ones who will not see Jesus. We won't touch him like the first disciples did. But according to Jesus, those of us who believe in him and have confidence in him, and that confidence and assurance is based on that sense of trust that we have in Jesus, we are the ones who are the more blessed. So, this sort of hope and faith is not like we often think these days, as something that is just simply given to you. A lot of people think that way about love. They think, "Oh, I've just fallen in love, and it's been given to you." Love is this entity, this thing that just sort of falls on you. And sometimes it disappears again. Sometimes it gets bruised and shattered, but it's a thing, and people wait, as it were, passively in relationships. I know as a counsellor in the past, I used to counsel quite a few couples, and sometimes they would come to me and I'd say, "What's going on?" And one of them would say, "I don't love her anymore." And I'd think, "What?" I said, I actually said this to one couple. I said, "Look, would you go away and come back when you've got a serious question to address to me?" Because what I saw in that couple was this sense that they never had to work for love, that they sat in this relationship demanding that that person would give them, love them, and that they would feel this wonderful feeling. And slowly there emerges in their mind this idea, "I don't love her like I used to love her," and then slowly it begins to dissolve and they end up in that sort of situation. That is not what the Bible says about love. And in the same sense, the Bible doesn't say that sort of thing about faith or hope or confidence, that there are these entities that just get shoveled out to you. There it is, there it is. If you don't put in the work in a relationship, you will know this, You just wait there saying, "Oh, I don't feel, I'm not in love anymore." The Bible never talks about relationships like that. It talks about love as a thing that you give, that you work on. Love is patient, love is kind, love thinks not about itself. Love doesn't remember stuff from the past and bring it up. Love endures all things. Now those are all action words. These are the things that you do to set up love within yourself. And if you give that sort of love in a relationship, you'll get it back. And love will blossom. But if you sit passively, accusing the other person of not loving you enough or not giving you what you want, what happens? So, getting back to this joy that Jesus has within him, I presume that if he's going out into the garden and facing that sort of agony, that there is a part of him, some deep, deep part of him, that is still secure. That sort of, that he doesn't feel as though that all is lost, and that he, even deep within him, there is some awareness that what he is doing is not only good, but it is a thing that gives him some fundamental joy. So he faces crucifixion, and there's a lot of mention of the humiliation of it. And I think that, in my mind, that features large. I don't know how Jesus endured it. This is the person we believe is God, and who is now one of us, joins us in this world. And he has to endure the most extraordinary range of humiliations. People think he's a fool. People think they can trick him, and then they insult him. They try and kill him. They try and beat him up. And then they rage against him, and he just stands there as a sort of passive figure, like a sheep before the shearer is done. He didn't move. He knew he was there because he was the one, in a sense, who was running the whole show. So he must have been driven by something. To have that sort of poise, to know with such certainty where he stood in those circumstances when he was in trouble. I want to know what that joy is. And I guess in a sense, there are people around Australia right now who are facing these terrible bushfires. This beast of a fire went down south. I forget where south is. That direction. No, that's north, isn't it? You go over. No, yes, of course. Sydney's up there, right? That fire down there. There's a beast of a fire. And it's a terrifying thing coming at you. And we know what fear is. We know what pain is. We know what separate. We know all of those things. And I know some of you get borne down and get almost overwhelmed by the circumstances you find yourself in. And you feel as though, no doubt, that you are struggling just simply to keep your head above water. Well, there are resources here. There are wonderful resources. If Jesus said to his disciples, "Don't let your hearts be worried," he is saying that to us. And we can drink deeply at that. So no matter what happens to us, no matter how overwhelming or impossible it may come, we can hold on to that. And we can hold on for two reasons, I believe. One, because we know who it is that we are talking about. It is God who created the cosmos. So we're dealing with number one, the one that changes things, that created us and that loves us and gave himself for us. That's what we can have confidence in. And we can also have confidence that what he said, the promises he made, are true. Because we can practice them. We can test them. We can pray to God. We can begin that process of building up that store within us that allows us to step through the circumstances that tend to overcome us. So, I also believe that in a way, we don't change unless we're in trouble. Well, I don't. The only time I really think deeply about stuff is if I am disturbed by something. I think about ideas simply out of interest, but stuff that has to do with me, I only go through, I only ask the big questions when I'm in trouble. And You know, there are verses throughout the New Testament which talk about every time you find yourself in trouble, praise God. And I think the writer is saying what I'm saying, that here is your chance. This problem you've got, this problem with your family, this problem with your business, this problem, whatever it is, that can be relativised now, because you have this other level of contact with God, this deep level of contact, which you, in a sense, have earned. You've gathered it. It's come to you because you have practiced that relationship with God. So, don't be terrified by frightening news. When the affairs and politics and the culture of our country looks to be in such terrible circumstances, when things around us look as though we're handing this world on to our next generation and we have no idea where it's going to end. You know, I was talking, my Friday morning group, by the way, last Friday I was the only one there. Do you know how humiliating it is sitting with this one sign saying refugees have rights? People walk past and say, "Oh, you're lonely today?" But anyway, one person joined me after half an hour. I forget why I said that. I'll just press on. So, I guess let me summarise what I'm saying. I believe in these circumstances today, there is a lot that we should be worried about. Oh yes, my Friday group. They often ask me, "Are you preaching this Sunday?" They have no intention of coming, of course. And I say, "Yes, I am, if I am." And I say, "Do you want the 5-minute version?" And at first they used to laugh, but now they listen. And so I've got to give about a 4-minute talk. And I say, "Okay, I'm talking." And I say this verse, "Let not your hearts be worried," you see. And they all start listening intently. And as I talked about, exactly the same way I just talked to you for a couple of minutes, one of them said, "You know, my daughter's a very active person. She runs those big demonstrations in Brisbane," and she talked about the extraordinary efforts her daughter puts in. I thought, what an impressive young woman. And she said, "She told me recently that this world is stuffed and she's never going to have children." I know a number of people like that. That's where things have come to. And I must say, when I look forward, I look ahead and I think, "Oh, my grandkids, what is this world?" I was talking to a person recently in company with his son. His son is about 30. And we were just talking about, his father and I were talking. And I said, I can remember when I was a young fellow and I talked about certain things I did. And suddenly the son bursts out. He used a very bad word. He said, "Damn you older people. This is the world that you've delivered to us." And suddenly I'm thinking, you're right. So now is the time, I think, when we have got to be sure where we stand in terms as we face these problems. And I think one of the contributions that we have to make as Christians to our life in Australia is to show people how it is possible to be steady, not to be knocked down. Well, we get knocked down, but not destroyed. To still stand, still hold our faith and the assurances that we believe. Because in the end, I think that is one of the great prizes of our faith, is that it gives us this to stand in this world.